Hello, my name is Jean Alicia Elster, and I'm greeting you as the participants in the Secondary Authors Contest, 6th through 12th grade students, I'm told. So that's quite a wide range. So I'm putting together a little talk for you that I hope all of you will be able to get something from. I want to first, though, thank Stephanie Thomas and the literacy team at Monroe County Intermediate School District for inviting me to be a part of this. And I also want to congratulate the participants in the contest because you have done something that many people that call themselves writers never do. You have finished what you started. So whether it's a poem, a story, I'm not sure what you submitted, but you finished it. So you should be proud and you should be congratulated. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. That's right, go blue. And I'm sure some of you will be going there when and if you attend college. I also went to the University of Detroit School of Law. And I am still licensed to practice law in the state of Michigan, but I have not practiced for quite a while. I have been a professional writer for about 25 years. And I write primarily for children, middle grade, and young adults. Young adults meaning high school age and older. But even my middle grade books, even though they are for a slightly younger or focused more on a slightly younger age range, I have a lot of adult readers for those and for my young adult book. And that's because I always try to give my readers a challenging read. I don't write down to any of them. And so that's why adults are also able to connect with my books and the stories that I portray in them. Whenever I write, I want the reader to inhabit the world that I create. And I call that time travel. So I want to take the reader to a different time. So in my first two most recent books, Who's Jim Hines and The Colored Car, those take place in 1935 and 1937. My most recent book, which you see behind me, How It Happens, takes place partially in the late 1800s. So that's post-Reconstruction era in the United States. And it ends in post-World War II. In Detroit during that time. So in order to help my readers inhabit those time frames, I think it's important to provide what I call authenticity. Okay, so the Merriam-Webster's dictionary describes authenticity as real or genuine, true and accurate. And this is the part that I think is most important. Worthy of acceptance or belief. Worthy of acceptance or belief. In other words, I want my readers to believe my world. I want my readers to believe the world that I have offered them in whatever I'm writing. And how do I do that? It's hard work. Okay, I'm not going to joke with you about that, even though I'm smiling. It's hard work. And I do it in 3 different phases, in 3 different ways: research, travel and site visits, and oral histories. So the research can take a lot of different forms, but one of the things that I use and I find indispensable, you see this dictionary and you can tell it's pretty old, it's worn, the pages are yellowed. This dictionary was published in the 1930s. And I use it to make sure that the language that I use when I'm writing during that time period and earlier was actually used. The English language and all languages change with time and with the era that they're in and with the needs of the people that use the language. So there's certain words that just were not used or were not used in the same way in the 1930s or even in the early 1900s. And so I want to make sure that the language that I use is authentic for my readers. I want them to come out of the reading experience with a true and authentic experience. So this this dictionary helps me quite a bit. Another book that I use in my research, and I have to thank my husband, who is a historian. I borrowed this book from him and I just have never given it back, but it's called Historic Costumes, a survey of historic costumes. And I use this because I make sure that when I describe clothing, what anyone's wearing, that it's true to that time period. There's certain dyes, D-Y-E-S, there's certain dyes, certain colors just were not available during certain time periods. They certain chemicals that we have now that we take for granted that make certain colors just weren't available 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago. Zippers, when were zippers first used? So I'm not going to have, if I need to describe an outfit or a dress with a zipper, I want to make sure that the zipper was actually used during that time. Certain things, cufflinks, certain fabrics, whatever. So again, that's another way that I do authenticity through my research. I am based here in the Detroit area, the Metro Detroit area, and for all three of these books that you see here, I use the Burton Historical Collection in the main branch of the Detroit Public Library, especially for the book, The Colored Car. When I have the protagonist, meaning the main character, Patsy, takes a train ride from Detroit to Clarksville, Tennessee. And you have to wear gloves when you look at some of these archival things, but I look through old tickets, I look through train schedules, menus, because they had restaurant cars during that time. I wanted everything to be authentic. And certain things that I research, even if they never make it in the book, it's still in my mind. So it's informing the way I portray things and the way I write about things, even if it never makes it on a page in the book. So that's part of the research. And then I talk about travel, and that is another part of research, and particularly for how it happens. My husband and I went to Clarksville, Tennessee, to the Clarksville Genealogical Library. And the South is really big on genealogy, and they have these libraries there. So my husband emailed the genealogist there. His name is Tim Pulley, and his help was so invaluable. I even thank him in the acknowledgments of how it happens. These are just some notes from another presentation. But I thank him there because when I got there, he had a trove of information, wills, census records, birth records. My grandmother's biological family was very prominent during that time period, and there were books written about them. So he had a stack of books. And all these things helped inform what I was able to write about. As I said, even if it wasn't actually in the book, it was still in my mind as I was writing. And then another major part of creating authenticity, and it may even be the most important, I take a lot of family oral histories. And I do this holidays, reunions, even casual visits. And sometimes I ask the same questions of certain relatives over and over again, because depending upon how they're feeling, what they ate that day, who they happen to just talk to, you'll get different information and a lot of information. So oral histories are very, very important. And in all of these three books, the chapter headings are based upon what I call lines of time that I gleaned from these oral histories. And they, even though it's fictionalized, the core of it is based upon what I heard in talking with these various family members. So I want to read from you a portion of a chapter that's called Fire. And as I said, I know this is 6th through 12th grade, so I picked a section that I thought everyone could kind of connect with. And my mother is the one that told me these oral histories about my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who, when she was a young girl, was in a fire. Her nightgown caught fire. She was near a fireplace. And even when she was an adult, you could see the scars, part of her cheek still hung from this fire. So I'm going to read a bit of that for you. Late that night, Addie awoke to the smell of smoke, like a wood stove burning in the middle of the night. Then she heard the piercing screams. She bolted out of bed and threw open her bedroom door. She stepped out into the living room and saw the walls covered with flames. She was blinded with the brightness of the fire. She coughed as smoke began to fill her lungs. Oh God, oh my God, she cried out. The screams continued. Addie yelled, Patsy, Dorothy Mae, where are you? Using her forearm to shield her face from the smoke and the brightness of the flames, Addie sped to the corner of the living room where the girls slept on a single cot. Patsy was crouched on the smoldering wooden floor at the foot of the bed. She scooped Patsy up in her arms. She put the girl's face close to her breast to shield her from the smoke and heat. Still, the screams continued. Dorothy Mae, she cried. Mama! Addie heard a heart-rending wail. It was Dorothy Mae's voice, but she couldn't see the girl. Panic struck her as she waved her free arm and tried futilely to disperse the smoke. She frantically looked about the room. Through the thickening haze, she saw a strange glow. And then she saw Dorothy Mae standing by the kitchen door. Her little white night slip was in flames. The fire leapt up to her face. My baby, she screamed. She sat Patsy in the middle of the room as she commanded, don't move, Patsy. Then, Dorothy Mae, I'm coming for you, baby. Mama, Dorothy Mae screamed. Help me, help me, help. Dorothy bolted to the other end of the room and pulled her daughter to the floor. She rolled her on the floor, trying to smother the flames. She could smell the stench of burned flesh and singed hair. She felt nauseous. She could not put out all the flames that engulfed her daughter. Smoke had almost completely filled the room. It hurts, Mama, it hurts, Addie heard Dorothy Mae moan. Then her child was silent. Oh, my baby, don't die. Dorothy Mae, please, Jesus, please don't let my baby die. Addie heard loud thuds against the front door. Someone pushed in the door and immediately started coughing. The flames continued to spread throughout the house. Over there, Addie shouted to the body. Get Patsy. She's in the middle of the room here. Get her out of here. Addie could barely see the form of a man as he fell to his knees and crawled over to Patsy. He reached out, grabbed her, then dragged the girl out of the house. Addie was still rolling Dorothy Mae on the floor. The child was limp. Addie kept rolling. She finally got all the flames out. She guided Dorothy Mae up in her arms. She could not see through the smoke and did not know where to find the door, but she could feel a gust of air. By instinct, she moved in the right direction and made it out of the house, running into the street. Crowds of people filled the road. She could see their faces clearly because of the brightness of the fire. Addie turned around. Flames were shooting out of the windows. They covered the roof. Everyone stood and watched the spectacle. The roof of the house made a tremendous crash as it caved in. Addie and the girls had made it out just in time. Addie looked down at Dorothy Mae and gasped in horror. Half of her face on the right-hand side was burned and misshapen. Then Addie fainted into a heap on the ground, still clutching her daughter. So thank you for this time you have spent with me. All the best to you in whatever you write now and in the future.